الحمد لله الحمد لله ضعف ما حمده جميع خلقه كما يحبه ويرضاه. اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاه. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. Hazrat Ikram, Honorable Assembly, first of all we give all praise and all thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the favors and bounties Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on us. And we send salat and salam on His last and final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we continue with the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, as we call it, the best story, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself says Ahsan al-Qasas, that this story is considered to be the best story in the entire Quran. We did the dream of Yusuf alayhi salam being thrown in the well. We saw him being rescued from the well, being sold by his brothers. We saw him being bought by the Aziz. He entered into the palace as a slave. We saw what took place between the Aziz's wife and him. And from the palace, he was thrown into prison. Now we have the last segment, which is from the prison back to the palace. So, min as-sijn ila al-qasri. But even this last segment could take more than one session because of how in-depth is this story of Yusuf alayhi salam. But inshallah, I'm going to try my best to summarize everything so that we can complete it tonight. But there are going to be one or two details that I'm going to purposefully leave out so that we can complete it tonight, inshallah. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he enters in the prison. And he found the prison to be a place of protection for him because of what he left behind. If he were to stay in that palace, in the home of the Aziz's wife, Zuleika, then definitely after a period of time, he would have been forced to commit zina. As a form of protection from zina, the prison was a means of a protection for him. So whilst people, when they do something wrong, they are punished in a prison. He did not do anything wrong, but he took the prison as a shelter, as a form of protection for him. So he entered happily because he knows that this is what Allah has in store for me. And this is where he started to do his da'wah. All the time before, he was not commanded to preach to anyone. As he enters in the prison now, the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came that you need to start to teach, you need to start to preach, you need to start to deliver the message. وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْرُ فَتَيَانِ, Allah says, and two men entered the sijr at the same time with him. So on the same day, he was placed in the prison, the same time, two other men entered the prison. One was known as the Saqi and the other the Khubaz. The Saqi was the distiller of the king who was in charge of preparing the drinks for the king, and the other was the Khubaz which is the baker, the one preparing the meals. Now someone attempted to poison the king. And because of that, now the two persons in charge of these two areas, the bakery or the one who is in charge of the food and the one in charge of the drink, the two of them were put in prison for an investigation to take place. The Khubaz, his name was Nabwa, that is the baker, and the Saqi, his name was Majallaf. These were the two men. So they were placed in there waiting for the investigation to complete to see which one of them is going to come out innocent. And they got a dream, both of them got a dream one night. And after they got this dream, they came to Yusuf alayhi salam. Now they did not know Yusuf alayhi salam from before. Maybe just one day before they saw him enter the prison, all of them entered together, and they saw this man. And after getting this dream, out of every single one that was there in the prison, they approached Yusuf alayhi salam. And they told him their dream. One of them, he says, Inni arani a'siru khamara. I dreamed that I was serving wine. The other, he says, Inni arani ahmilu fawqa ra'si khubzan ta'kulu tayru minhu. I dreamed that I was carrying khubz, I was carrying bread on my head, and a bird was eating from it. So the two, this is the dream they got. They went to Yusuf alayhi salam and they informed him of the dream. One of the lessons we got from it is that Yusuf alayhi salam was such a person that you could approach him at any time. At any time. And he was very, very pleasant. You don't have to be afraid or be scared to go and ask him anything. Because these two men, they got a dream and they were ready to share their dream with him without even having a long period of being with Yusuf alayhi salam. And this is a lesson especially for our ulamas. Sometimes as you get knowledge, you feel that you're on the clouds. And you feel that you're better than everyone. And sometimes people are scared to come and ask you something. Now if people are scared to come and ask you, if they do not know something, that means you're not benefiting from your knowledge. Because the reason of seeking knowledge is so that you better yourself and propagate it. And if because of your unpleasantness, because of you portraying this way of being a monster in front of the people, then you're not going to be able to share your message. Many times people call on Maulanas or Alims and they will tell them, I'm too busy. You have to make an appointment to reach me, 2-3 days appointments. When you behave in such a manner, then people are going to run away. So one, it is a great lesson we learn from Yusuf alayhi salam that we as scholars need to be able to be approachable by the people. We have to learn how to speak to the people. Because if we are arrogant and we reproach people, and in our language we say, we buff people. And sometimes you find scholars doing that when they are asked a question and they do not know it and they don't want to feel bad in front of people, they buff that person up. Because they're ashamed to say, I don't know. So the only way out, you don't know this, you don't know that. And they try to buff to quiet the people. And as well, this is against our teachings. So not only the ulamas, but brothers who are involved in Dawah and Tabligh as well. If you're involved in the work of the effort of Dawah and Tabligh, then the people have to see you as someone that they could want to talk to you. And that could only happen by your actions, not by your lectures, not by speaking 2-3 hours, not by spending 40 days and 4 months. They have to see you as someone welcoming. If they don't see you as someone welcoming, then you could talk for a whole year. They don't want to hear nothing from you. So we as individuals, if you're involved in any one of these, if you're a scholar or if you're involved in Dawah Tabligh, the first lesson we get from this in the prison is that Yusuf alayhi salam portrays such pleasantness towards the people that this person, these two individuals got a dream and they were ready to even share their dream with him. And what Yusuf alayhi salam did, Yusuf alayhi salam, he says to them, he says, لا يأتيكما طعام ترزقانيه إلا نبأتكما بتأويله قبل أن يأتيكما. Yusuf alayhi salam, he says, in shorter terms, he says, before your food comes, I'm going to tell you the dream. Before you get your meal, you're going to hear the interpretation of your dream. But he did not inform them of the interpretation immediately, even though he knew the interpretation of the dream, but he purposefully withdrew that interpretation because he's using this as a form of an opportunity. He's using it as a form of an opportunity. These two, they want something from him. What they want to know the interpretation of the dream. Now, if you need something from me, I want to give you something before. I need you to listen to me. So he used the opportunity now and says, you're going to get it. Don't think I'm going to delay and I'm going to tell you come back tomorrow the next. No, before your food comes, I'm going to tell you the interpretation. But before that, I have something important to tell you. And he used that time to give dawah. And this is any one of us who are involved again in the work of Dawah and Tabligh. Whenever we get an opportunity, we need to use that opportunity. You don't let that opportunity go. So someone could come to you and say, you know what, I want to borrow a little hammer. I want to borrow something. Or give me some advice about something in the government or some kind of thing. They could come and ask you for an advice. You don't just give them that advice. Use that opportunity to give them a little dawah. Use a little, do not keep on long, and this is what he did not prolong it. He says, before your meals come. So don't worry, I'm not going to give you an hour lecture, a 2-hour lecture. He says, but I have something I want to say to you. So if you know that individual, you know something that you could advise them about with concerning deen, you push that first, and then you give them whatever they asked for, whatever they came for, whatever was their purpose. So whenever you get an opportunity, you take it. The second is that it is mentioned in the tafsir that he says that I'm going to give it before your meals, because one of the things is he wanted to show them a miracle. And that miracle that he showed them, he told them that what food is going to come, how this food is going to taste, how much food is going to come. He didn't know anything, but Allah sent down that. And the reason for that is, as he told them that, he made them even more convinced that, you know what, whatever interpretation I'm going to give you, they're going to accept it more. So which another point again comes is that you need to build a relationship with those who you're giving dawah to. Build a relationship. And it's very, very important to build that relationship. If you don't build a relationship and you're just talking, then again, they're not going to take you on. If you study a little counseling, you're going to know that sometimes people come for multiple sessions. And only after 5 sessions, then they're going to start to really get into the real gist of helping them to be changed. because you need to, between the counselor and the client, you need to build a kind of connection first. Only when that connection is built, only then that individual is really ready to open up. At the beginning, many things might come out of the mouth, but many things might be lies. Only when they really have that sort of confidence and that trust in you, only then they are ready to give you, or ready to be more effective in your speech towards them. Yusuf alayhi salam is in a prison. Now, in the prison, what type of people are in a prison? Only criminals. So you have people who have committed many different crimes. As you can see, the worst set of people in society are there in the prison. But Yusuf alayhi salam treated each and every one of them with compassion, with love. And this is why he was loved in the prison. Many times we do dawah and tabligh and we go for gash, and somebody come out and start to cuss you up. Next time you go around there, you telling the Amir, we skip in this house. You're not passing back there. Because you know what happened? But this is not dawah and tabligh. Yet how much insult you get, you still go back there. Because as long as people are there, there's always hope for them. Be it what type of sinner they are. We do not lose hope in any human being as long as they have life. We do not condemn anyone. Yet how great a sinner they are, you don't condemn them. Because you do not know what Allah has in store for them. We do not know. Next thing you know, they even become better than us. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he delayed it, he gave them a dawah. Now the dawah by itself is a bayan by itself. Just the dawah. If you understand the lines of this dawah, we could go into the lines of the dawah and look at why he said each statement. And how powerful was each statement that he used towards these inmates, that after a period of time, the same inmates, all of them became Muslims. All of them accepted the deen of Allah, just with the lines of the dawah that he had given to those people in the prison, to these two men. أَأَرْبَابٌ مُتَفَرِّقٌ خَيْرٌ أَمِ اللَّهِ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. What you are worshipping is it's just gods that you have named, your forefathers has named them. And the list goes on. So he gave them the da'wah. Most of it was around Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after that, he informed them of the interpretation of the dream. He says, أَمَّا أَحَدُهُمَا فَيَسْقِي رَبَّهُ. As for one of you, أَمَّا أَحَدُكُمَا فَيَسْقِي رَبَّهُ. As for one of you, he's going to be serving his king, his master. So which means he's going to be innocent. As for one of you. وَأَمَّا الْآخَرُ. As for the other, فَيُسْلَمُ. He's going to be crucified, he's going to be killed. Or تَأْكُلُ الطَّيْرُ مِنْ رَأْسِهِ. And then birds are going to eat from his head. But he did not say, you are going to be innocent, you are going to be killed. Listen to it, he says, for one of you. It can be any one of you, even though it is clear. Both of them, listen, they already know who is going to be freed and who is not going to be free, who is going to be killed. But even though they would know, Yusuf alayhi salam, he tried to lessen the grief that the one who are given this bad news to. And this is also another lesson, as you have to give bad news to someone, you need to ensure that you try to deliver it in such a way that it brings about the least amount of pain and sorrow to them. So even though you have to tell them, try your best to put it in such a way that it will give them the least amount of pain. Also a teaching for us, whenever we're given dawah, we have to be careful of what we see. What we see is very, very important. Sometimes brothers go and they're speaking to brothers when you go out for gash, and they're telling, because sometimes without ilm, say if you don't pray, you're going to go in the fire of Jahannam and you're going to be born for so much of years, and we know all of that is correct. All of that is correct, but how you say it, the way how you just say that there, as soon as you start, he just turn off one time. You could continue to talk. And what you have done, you have pushed them away more. So if you want to deliver something like that, you don't say you say we. If we don't pray, you know what is going to happen to us? As long as you start to point to him, you not come in masjid. If you don't come, so and so, if you do that, you are pushing them away instead of bringing them closer. So it's very important the way how you speak, because even though both times you might be saying the correct thing, it is not about what is correct, it is about how you say the correct thing. That is what is going to be more effective. So he gives them the interpretation of the dream, and then he pulls the khabas aside. That is the one in charge of the bakery. No, not the bakery, sorry, the sake. He pulls the sake aside, the one in charge, the distiller, the one who is going to be serving the king, and he says, "Udhkurni in the Rabbik." Says to him quietly, secretly, he says, "Mention me with the king. When you're serving the king, help me out a little bit. Mention about my case to the king." And the Saki says, yes, definitely. Because Yusuf alayhi salam had just explained the dream free of charge. He got a favor, so he says, yes, no problem. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانِ. And as he was released, Shaitan made him forget all about Yusuf alayhi salam. فَلَّبِسَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. And now Yusuf alayhi salam remained in that prison for 7 more years. Bid'ah Sinin, 3 to 9, any number between 3 to 9. According to most scholars, 7 years he remained inside that prison. When you're in hardship, you think about people. Think about that. When you reach a point, you start to think, who could help me? Again, listen to that. Who could help me? And you start to think of all the numbers and you start to call. See who could pull me out, who could help me. As soon as you get through, months will pass, you won't call that person again. Forget about them. You don't need them again. When you need them, you remember them. And when you don't need them, you push them aside. This is what happens from us as a human being point of view. So this man, he came out and he's busy now serving the king. He forgets everything about Yusuf alayhi salam. And Yusuf is staying there. He's not hearing anything. 7 years have passed and he has not heard anything from this man he got. Then after that 7 years in the prison, the king had a dream now. And this king, his dream was, says, I dream sab'a baqaratin simani ya'kuluhunna sab'atun ijafan wa sab'a sumbulatin khudrin wa ukhra yabisat. This was the dream of the king. So the king dream was, I dreamt 7 fat cows were being devoured by 7 fine cows, 7 lean cows. So you have 7 big fat cows, and then all of a sudden you see 7 fine cows come in and eat out the 7 fat cows. Then he said, I also saw 7 green ears green corns, and I saw 7 dry ones. So when he got that dream, he called all the members of parliament, called all his ministers, all his advisors, and he told them his dream, and he asked them, "You're my advisors, give me the interpretation of this dream. Give me the interpretation of my dream." And he says, "Qalu adghathu ahlam." He said, this dream is useless. This dream is nothing. There's nothing to interpret about this dream. And why they said that? They said that because they don't know. And sometimes a lot of people do that. They don't know, and they don't want to say they don't know. So that, as I said, they make up other things. So sometimes you ask someone, that I think I heard a hadith of so and so, and they don't know, and they don't want to say, no, I don't know that hadith. They say, no, I don't know hadith like that. They have no hadith like that. Whoever told you that, they know what they're saying. Why? Because again, you don't want to say you don't know. And same thing, the advisors, they don't want to say, we don't have no knowledge or interpretation of dream. They say, that dream, that's a false dream. That dream don't mean nothing. So the distiller who was serving wine, he heard the dream. So he said to the king, "You know what, I was in a similar situation with a dream, and there was this fella in the prison, and he told me the interpretation. If you allow me, I will go to him and ask him what is the interpretation of the dream." So the king says, "Go ahead." فَأَرْسِلُونَ, he says, "Go ahead." He sent him. Now, this man is reaching Yusuf alayhi salam after 7 years of neglect. Imagine somebody do you a favor and they ask you to do something. And again, it is allowed to ask someone for a favor. It is not against tawakkul. As we see Yusuf alayhi salam, he didn't say, when Allah ready. He told this man, help me out as well. So this man now, he's courageous to go back to Yusuf alayhi salam after 7 years of making this man stay in the prison without ever mentioning him to the Malik, to the king. But yet he went. But Yusuf alayhi salam, he did not despise him. He was not angry at him, because he knew that it was Shaitan who did it. And he knows that Allah wanted him to stay there for 7 years. This is how he thought. So don't blame the individual. Blame the things around him. Blame Shaitan. Say, you know what? Allah wanted that. This is decree. I can't change decree. If Allah wanted me out, then definitely this man would have mentioned me to the king. Allah didn't want me out. This is why I have to stay here for 7. So he didn't blame the individual for forgetting him. So he comes to Yusuf alayhi salam and he says, "Oh Yusuf," and he addresses Yusuf, "Ayyuha Yusuf, ayyuha Siddiq." Yusuf, oh the truthful one. The king had a dream, and I want you to give me the interpretation of the dream so that I may go back to the people and everyone may know the dream. Yusuf alayhi salam immediately told him the interpretation of the dream. Now listen to the difference. When this individual had a dream, he ensured he gave him dawah and then gave him the interpretation. Now he come back with another dream. This time Yusuf alayhi salam didn't say, "Give me a little time, let me give you some more dawah." He didn't do that this time. He gave him the interpretation of the dream immediately. And the reason for that is because this man was already a Muslim, already a believer. Since the first time in the prison, as he gave him dawah, he became a believer. And so there was no need again. So he told him the interpretation. He says, for 7 years, you're going to have good crops. The land is going to be very fertile. Whatever you reap from those 7 years, leave it in its ear, except little that you need to use. So you just use a little bit and you put aside the rest. You save the rest. And you do like this for the 7 years. Because after this 7 years, they're going to have another 7 years. That's why it's 7 fat cow and 7 fine cow. You're going to have another 7 years where you're going to have drought and famine. And with a drought and famine, nothing is going to be able to grow. So what you saved in that 4-7, you're going to be able to use it during the 7 years of hardship. So this was the interpretation of the dream, which was 14 years, 7 years of production, and then 7 years of famine. But then Yusuf alayhi salam added on a year for him. It says, as for the year after that, that is the 15th year, you're going to have a lot of abundance. As long as you could pass through that 7 years of famine, know that on the 15th year, and this extra year, Allah had given Yusuf alayhi salam wahi to know what is going to happen. So he got this. So the Saki, he is happy. He got the interpretation. He's ready to go back to the king. He hurries with excitement because all the advisors could not explain his dream. He's the one that get this explanation. So he's so excited. He goes to the king and he informs the king, you know what, this is your interpretation. The king was happy as well. The king wanted the individual now. He says, call him, bring him to me, I want him. If he could do that, and all my advisors couldn't do that, I want him as part of my advisors. Bring him, and I'm going to put him as part of my advisors. So Yusuf alayhi salam is going to get freedom now. So the Saki, he returned back to the prison, and he told Yusuf alayhi salam, the king wants you. You're free. Free after 7 years. And it's not like he didn't want to come out of prison, because if he didn't want to come out of prison, he would have never asked him, mention my name to the king since 7 years ago. So he wanted to come out. But as the messenger came, the Saki came, he says, Irji' ila rabbik. Go back to the king. And ask him about the incident where the woman cut their hands. We did that incident in our last session. The woman cut their hands. Is when Zuleika gathered all of them and gave them fruits and he came in front. Asked it, tell the king to find out about that. So even though he's getting his freedom, he do not want to come out as if, you know what, I was guilty and now I came out. He wanted to be released as an innocent person. Because if he came out just like that, people will always remember that stain that he came out with. People who go in jail for different things, when they come out, but people remember them by the action they did. That is all that they remember you by. And this by itself should be a precaution of doing sins, because you could do the world of good. If you do one sin and people find out about that, that is what they call you by. That is all that they remember you by. So you need to stay away from things that people are with bad things, because they remember the bad things and they don't remember the good things that you do. So he wanted freedom, but he wanted to come out as an innocent man. He wanted to be clear to the whole kingdom that, you know what, this man was wrongfully put in prison. He never committed a crime. Because as you're going to see, he would be given a high position. And if he got that high position with that stain, then a lot of people will not have some certain amount of respect for him. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, Yusuf alayhi salam was very patient. He says, if I was in Yusuf's position, soon as that Saki came, I would have run out of prison. That is what the Prophet ﷺ says. Because 7 years in a prison and you're now getting freedom, you're going to say, you go back, I go, wait, take a next year, 2 years to investigate that. She says, no, I would have run out. You get freedom and you're still saying, no, I'm going to stay. But Yusuf alayhi salam, hikmah, Allah granted him hikmah before he granted him ilm. So he was very wise. So now when the messenger, he went back to the king and told him, no, this man don't want to come out. He says, only when you investigate such matter, only then he's going to come out. So now the king is in a position, the king called all the ministers' wives, because all of them were involved in it. Called all of them together in his court and started to question them because he didn't know anything about it. Him being thrown in the prison was by the ministers came together and saying, what? Throw him. This is the only way to protect our wives and protect our jobs. The king didn't have no saying in put him in jail. That did not go to the king. So now the king is getting to hear about this. So the king asks all of them. And the wife of the Aziz, Zulayka, she says, as Allah says in the Quran, Al-ana hashas al-haq, ana rawattuhu an nafsi. She says, now I confess the truth. Now I confess the truth. Ana rawattuhu an nafsi. I was the one that tried to seduce him. He didn't have nothing to do with it. So she confessed. And that now was clear. And then but she says, Inna nafsa la ammaratun bisu. She blamed the nafs. Says the nafs is what pulled me to do that evil. So he is innocent. So the king now sent back for him and he came. He was able to come out of the prison now innocent. Nobody could say anything about him. So as he came now, he's in front of the king. The king says, Astakhlishu li nafsi. The king says, and open to everyone, I am going to take him specially for myself. Astakhlishu li nafsi. I want him to be like my right hand man. I want him to be next to me. Astakhlishu li nafsi. Inna ladayna makinun amin. I'm going to give him a high position. And Amin, I'm going to make him my best advisor, or my closest advisor. So this is what he is given. But he was not pleased. Yusuf alayhi salam, he says, Ij'alni ala khaza'in al-ard. Yusuf alayhi salam, he says, yes, I'm happy with what you want to give me, but I want to be in charge of the khaza'in. Khaza'in literally means the treasures of the land. He wants to be in charge of all the crops because that was the wealth, and he knows of the 7 years that is going to come with famine. So he says, it's as if he's saying, hey, make me the finance minister. That is what I want. Make me that. I want to be that. Because, and he says two things. He says, because one, I am Hafiz and I'm Alim. So Alim means I have knowledge. With my knowledge, I'm going to ensure that things go the way it's supposed to go. And I'm Hafiz, I am a protector, I'm caring, I'm going to be a guardian towards the people. So make me that. Means that I'm going to look out for the people. And these are the two qualities all politicians was supposed to have. Okay. Because whilst you have some of them who are very caring for the people, they don't have the knowledge of how to carry out their responsibilities. And then when you have those who have the knowledge of how to do that, they use that knowledge to fill their own pockets instead of taking care of the people. He says, I want to be in charge of that. The only way this could go through properly is if you appoint him. So the king appointed him. So he now became an Aziz. So from the prison, taken out from the prison, and made a minister. As you can say in our terms, the Minister of Finance. And he saw through during this period. His first 7 years, he was ensuring that things are put in place so that they save as much crops as possible, so that when that next 7 years come, they have enough to last out that next 7 years. But during this period of time, Zuleika's husband passed away. That is the Aziz which he was in their house. The Aziz that bought him, he passed away. So the king got Zuleika and Yusuf alayhi salam married. So the two of them got married, and from Zuleika she got 2 sons for Yusuf alayhi salam. And during that marriage between Yusuf alayhi salam and Zuleika, Yusuf alayhi salam had a lot more love for her than she had for him. When you would have thought that she would have had more love for him because of how he ended up in the prison, you would have thought she would have had this kind of love for him. And then he realized, you know what, I love her so much, but I'm not seeing that amount of love that I expected. So he even confronted her and asked her, why it is that you don't love me as how you had loved me before we got married, before the whole incident of the prison? And listen to her response. She said, you introduced me to Allah. She said, you introduced me to Allah. During those days, I didn't know Allah. So I was only following my nafs. And my nafs was telling me, this is the best thing there is. But now when I got married to you, you introduced me to who is Allah. And when I get to know who is Allah, then all my love has gone to Allah. All her love now is to Allah because she understood who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that 7 years of prosperity went by. Now reached down to the 7 year of the famine. During those 7 years, Yusuf alayhi salam being the Aziz, his responsibility is to ensure all the crops last for 7 years. Have to last for 7 years. And not only for Egypt, but people were coming from all over because they didn't save. So they use out, and now there's drought, there's famine, and they heard that in Egypt we have something there, so we're going to go to Egypt. So people started to come in from all over to get some goods. Yusuf alayhi salam, one of the things he implemented was that all the soldiers and himself and all the ministers will only eat 1 meal a day. Even though they have the crops, they're the one in charge of it. We're only going to eat 1 meal a day. And this is so that we could ensure that it is given out to the other people they are going to get, as well as we could help those other cities that are coming in. We could even help them. And this is the correct way of tightening the belt. Not when you are told to tighten your belt, but then they are making sure they are doubling their belts. So this is what Yusuf alayhi salam did. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he started, and now in Canaan, his brothers them run out of crops as well. So Yaqub alayhi salam sent the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam to get some of the crops. So as they came, فَدَخَلُوا وَجَاءَ إِخْوَةَ يُوسُفَ فَدَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَعَرَفَهُمْ وَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكِرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the brothers came in and they entered into Egypt. Yusuf alayhi salam, فَعَرَفَهُمْ, he recognized them. Soon as he saw them, he knew these are my brothers. Now think what his brothers did to him in the past. Seeing them now, he in this high position, and they are coming to ask him for favors. When all of them came together and kick him up, slap him, throw him in the well, sell him out. All of that they did to him. Now they are coming, and he saw them. But they didn't recognize him because he was very small when they did that to him. So as he grew up now, they didn't recognize him, and they didn't expect that he would have been given such high position because they sold him as a slave. And if you are sold as a slave, you remain a slave your whole life. So they had no expectation that the same slave is going to be the finance minister, as you say. So they weren't looking for him. So they didn't recognize him. So Yusuf alayhi salam, awa ilayhi, he approached them. He came and he started to talk to them first. And he asked them, say, what brings you to my land? He said, we came for some provision. He says, la'allakum uyun. Yusuf alayhi salam, he says, maybe you're spies. La'allakum uyun. They say, ma'adallah, no. I seek protection in Allah, no way. Then he says, so min aina antum, where are you from? And he says, min Kan'an, abuna Yaqub Nabi Allah. They say, we are from Canaan and our father is Yaqub, who is a prophet of Allah. By saying that, they remove doubts of them being any spies. And then he asks them, is this all your siblings? He says, no, we were 12 in total, and one died in childhood. One died in childhood. And the other, the father kept back. The father, he's scared since the one died, so he kept him back. So we are only 10 right now. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he's hearing them, listening to all the lies that they are saying. So he ordered for them to get their provision. Now for each person were given a camel's load of provision. Whatever your camel could carry, that is the amount you get. So each one, so 10 of them with 10 camels, they're going to get 10 camel loads. And they brought some money to pay. So Yusuf alayhi salam told his workers secretly to hide and put it back in their luggage somewhere. And the workers, they secretly put back the money, put it back inside, and they didn't know. And he said to them, the next time you're coming, make sure you bring your small brother. If you do not bring him, then I'm not going to allow you to even enter into Egypt. So you're not going to get any more provisions if you do not come with him. He said, Sanurawidu Abana, we're going to try to convince our father. So they left. And they went to their father. They reached home. They didn't go in to take out their provisions. Soon as they went home, because even though they got 10 camels, they were thinking, we could have gotten 11. If we had brought our small brother, we could have been going back now with 11 camel load instead of just this 10. So soon as they went home, they went on their father. It says, Muni al-Kail, our father, you have prevented us from getting an extra load of provision. You. All because of your protectiveness of this young one here. If you had only sent him with us, we would have protected him and we would have come back as well with another camel load of provisions. Now they were sincere this time. They did not want to harm Binyamin. They were sincere, but because of what happened before, the father was very reluctant. The father says, are you going to protect him just as how you protect Yusuf? That is a protection you want to protect him? No, I will not allow you. I will not allow Binyamin to go with you. And as they opened their luggage and they saw the money, they brought back the money now to the father and says, look how generous is that king. He even give back us our money. We have to go the next time with Benjamin. You have to send it. Now, when the father saw that, the father realized, you know what, because it is drought, famine, so definitely they need provision as well. And if he don't send Benjamin, even though he don't want to, but if he don't send, they're going to starve. So he needed to send. But he says, I'm not going to send him hatta tuni mawthikan, until you take a pledge with Allah, oath from Allah. Now all of them understood what it meant to take an oath from Allah. This by itself, taking an oath is very, very severe even until now. And again, I said I'm going to leave out a few things that we could go into. So they know how important it was. So they took that oath and they says, yes, we're going to bring him back safe to you. So the next time now, they're ready to go. All that provision had came to an end. They're ready to go back again for an extra. As they go, but the father gave them an advice. Says, if you're going, all of you are going, لا تدخلوا من باب واحد وادخلوا من أبواب متفرقة. Says, don't enter from one door or one gate. Enter from different entrances, different gates. Why did he say that? But he says, well, my advice cannot protect you from what Allah has decreed. If Allah has decreed for something to happen to you, that can't stop it. But out of precaution, you should enter from different doors. All of you shouldn't go through one door. And it is mentioned by the Mufassirun that the reason he is telling them to only go through one, to go through different doors and not to go through one, because of the eye, as you say, barai, or the evil eye. Because it is mentioned Yusuf was very handsome, but his brothers were handsome as well. Not as handsome as Yusuf. And when they saw this whole group, sometimes now other people were saying, what, 11 of them? And all 11 going away with a camel load, look how much they're going to take by themselves. So the evil eye. And the evil eye, as we know from the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ, is al-aynu haqqan. The eye is haqq. Many of our complications and our hardship that we face in life, it is because of the evil eye. And we are the one that make that happen, especially with social media. We share everything and people see it, and because of the evil eye, we see a lot of difficulties come our way. This is Yaqub alayhi salam. Even in those days, there's no social media, but yet he's taking precaution against the evil eye. Taking precaution against the evil eye. So they entered, and Yusuf alayhi salam, when he saw them, he looked for where Binyamin was. And he went, because they entered in different doors, they didn't enter in the same one, which made it even easier now for Yusuf alayhi salam to get in contact with Binyamin. If all of them were coming through one door, then it would have been very hard for him to be able to just get Binyamin alone one side. So he saw which gate they were coming through, and he went and he took Binyamin aside. And he says to Binyamin, Inni ana akhuka, I am your brother. فَلَا تَبْتَئِسْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. I am your brother Yusuf. Do not worry about what they might do to you. I am going to protect you. So as he revealed his secret, he told Binyamin about his plan to keep him with him. He wanted to keep his small brother with him. Because the two of them, as we mentioned from the beginning, those were blood brothers. The others were half brothers. So he was scared that the brothers might end up doing something bad to Binyamin as well. Right now, Binyamin is being protected by Yaqub. But if Yaqub is old, if Yaqub passes away, then he doesn't know what these brothers could do to his brother, Binyamin. So he wanted, but he can't just take him away. So he told him of a plan that we're going to do. So Benjamin was fully aware of what is going to take place now. So the brothers, they got their camel loads with provision, 11 camel loads of provision. And Yusuf alayhi salam told one of his workers to put the siqayatul malik, which is the bowl of the malik. It was a silver bowl that the king used to drink from. Take that and hide it in Benjamin's luggage, Benjamin's bag. So they did that, and now these 11 camel already packed, ready to leave, on their way leaving just before they are able to exit. Just before they are able to exit, Azana mu'adhdhinun ayyuhal iru innakum lasarikun. Somebody started to shout, don't allow nobody to leave. Innakum lasarikun. All of you are thieves. So as we say, they locked down the place because something was stolen. And now as they search, they are confused, wanted to know what happened. And then this person says the Siqayat al-Malik was stolen. And they ask, what is the punishment? He says, whatever the king decides will be the punishment. Or whatever the Aziz decides, that is going to be the punishment. And as they started to search, everyone was searched. And as we know, as they searched the luggage of Benjamin, they found it with him. Found it with Benjamin. So he was taken away. Now the brothers, they says, Iyasrak faqad saraka Yusuf min qabl. If he has stolen, then his brother was a thief as well from before, which is Yusuf. So Yusuf is there hearing them accuse him of being a thief, because they are blood brothers. So if he has stolen something, then definitely his brother would have had traits just like that as well. So Yusuf alayhi salam would have also been a thief. Yusuf alayhi salam hid that, even though he wanted, Allah says, he wanted to say something to them, but he kept it in. But we know Yusuf alayhi salam, they also know Yusuf alayhi salam was never a thief. But there was an incident that took place, as we know, when after Benjamin, their mother passed away. And in order to get some help, Yaqub alayhi salam had hired someone to take care of Yusuf alayhi salam, because he was still a baby and is another baby. He was 1 year after the other. So they were only 1 year apart. So when this individual started to take care of Yusuf alayhi salam, she was very, very connected with Yusuf. She loved Yusuf alayhi salam. And she did not want, when the time came when Yaqub alayhi salam says, I want back my son now, she didn't want to return the son. She didn't want to return Yusuf. So what she did was, she took some of her jewelry and she hid it in Yusuf alayhi salam's pocket. And then as he was going to return, she says, my jewelry is lost. And as they searched, they saw it in Yusuf alayhi salam's pocket. And because of that now, she was allowed to keep Yusuf alayhi salam for a longer time to repay for him thieving from her. Now, as she grew old, she passed away. But before she passed away, she confessed that the only reason she did that is that she wanted to keep Yusuf. So he didn't thief anything, he didn't steal anything. So all the brothers know about that incident because they were older. So they knew that incident, and they also knew Yusuf alayhi salam was innocent as well, but they still brought that back up. So Yusuf alayhi salam now takes away Benjamin, and it says to Yusuf, Inna lahu aban shaykhan kabira. Certainly he has a very old father. فَخُذْ أَحْدَنَا مَكَانًا. So take one of us in place of him. So instead of taking him, just take one of us. If our father, one of our brother had already died, now if he loses this one, it is going to be hard for him. Inna naraka min al-muhsinin. So we see you from amongst the good doers. And Yusuf alayhi salam says, if I were to do that, then I will be considered as a zalimin, not a muhsinin. If I take one of you in place of him and the one that I'm taking didn't do nothing, I can't penalize someone who is innocent for someone who did a crime. Whoever did the crime, they have to pay for it. And I'm not going to be from amongst the zalimin, so I'm going to keep it. So now it's time to return without Binyamin. It teaches us sometimes things are going very good, and then all of a sudden there's a change of events and things start to go upside down in our life. Same thing, it was going very good with them. They were happy, ready to leave with 11 camel load. And then all of a sudden things go on haywire. And that is how life is. All of that is part of the plans of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a time to return back home. But they're going back home one short. The eldest brother, he was the wise one. He was the one that told him, don't kill Yusuf, throw him in a well. He was the one bringing food for Yusuf in the well. He is, as you can say, Mr. Wise. He says, I can't go back to my father. I can't face my father. I took that oath, and I am not going to return back there. The only time I'm going to return is if my father sends for me and forgive me, or I find a way to get Binyamin released. So I'm staying in Egypt. But as for you, Seth, I want all of you to go back home and tell him what happened. Tell him the whole story. And surely he's not going to believe you. Because who is going to believe him? He's not going to believe you. So when you tell him this story, tell him to ask the other villagers who was there as well. Because the caravan had more than only the brothers. Ask them and they will confess as well. So they went home, no Binyamin. They told Yaqub alayhi salam. Yaqub alayhi salam already blind from crying and crying since he lost Yusuf alayhi salam, very old. They came home and they told him. Yaqub alayhi salam's response was, بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ أَمْرًا فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ عَسَى اللَّهُ أَن يَأْتِيَنِي بِهِمْ جَمِيعًا. Says, this is what you have done yourselves. This is what you have done yourselves. Now, we know they didn't do that. But what the commentator says, by him responding this way, it could mean that because of what you did since with Yusuf alayhi salam, this is a result of that from since then. Which it was right. If they didn't do that to Yusuf alayhi salam, none of this would have happened. It's because of their actions since then. Now Binyamin alayhi salam was taken away from him. But he says, maybe for sabrun jameel, I'm going to have sabrun jameel. I'm going to have a beautiful patience, as well as maybe Allah is going to use this to reunite me with both of my sons. That is, reunite me with both Yusuf alayhi salam and Binyamin alayhi salam. Innama ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah. And then he recited this dua. It says, I only complain my grief and my sorrow to Allah. Innama ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah. And then he told his sons, says, don't stay here, go and search for both of my sons. Still didn't lose hope that Yusuf alayhi salam died. He still had that hope that Yusuf alayhi salam is still alive somewhere. He tell them, go. So he took two of them, remained back with him. And the others went back to Egypt now, finding a way of how they could get Binyamin to be released. So they went and they tried to pull strings all how, to see how best they could get their brother. Everything fell short. Yet what they tried to do, they couldn't get Binyamin released. So the only thing to do now was to go and beg Yusuf alayhi salam. That was the only option, to go and plead and beg with him. So all of them came together and they went to Yusuf alayhi salam and they said, we don't have food. Our father is pining away. Our father is in a very, very bad state since Binyamin was taken. We don't have any money to pay again for any more food as well. So would you be kind enough to give us some provision? And وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا, that word is used, which means be charitable to us. That is by releasing Binyamin. Now when Yusuf alayhi salam is hearing about the hardship of their father, he's hearing about the hardship of his father, because it's the same father. When he's hearing about the hardship of the whole family of what they are going through, he's hearing about his family because they are his family. So at that moment, it broke him. And Yusuf alayhi salam, at that point, he says, Hal alimtum ma arabtum bi Yusuf min qabl. Did you know what you did? Ma fa'altum bi Yusuf min qabl. Did you know what you did with Yusuf from before? When he brought up that topic with Yusuf alayhi salam, they were shocked. They were shocked. They couldn't believe he is asking about Yusuf alayhi salam, because they never told him that their brother that had passed away was Yusuf as well. How it is that he is asking about Yusuf? So they says, Innaka la anta Yusuf? Are you Yusuf? And then he says, yes, Ana Yusuf. Wahada akhi, and this is my brother, Binyamin. قَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا, Allah has favored us. إِنَّهُ مَنْ يَتَّقِي وَيَصْبِرْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Certainly those, whoever has sabr and taqwa, two qualities, sabr and taqwa. You don't give up. Keep on having patience and continue to do good deeds. Allah wouldn't waste your good deeds. So now they are scared. No, this is Yusuf, this is his brother, this is Binyamin, and they could remember all the things that they had done to him. Think about that, all the bad things they did to him. Now is the time for him to take revenge. So Yusuf alayhi salam was not a person about revenge. He was thrown into prison. He didn't take revenge. When he came out, he didn't look for everybody to take revenge on them. No, just allow that to slide. Similarly, his brothers are here. They are worried that he is going to take revenge on them. But what does he say to them? He says, La tathriba alaykum al-yawm. He says, La tathriba alaykum al-yawm. No revenge will be taken on you today. Yaghfir Allahu lakum. May Allah forgive you. Forgiveness, Allah forgive you. Definitely they were happy, because being in a state, knowing what you have done, and now being right there where you could be jailed for life, your head could be taken off now, and yet Yusuf alayhi salam in this position forgive them for all that they had done to him. And Allah subhanahu, same thing with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Fathu Makkah. After all the persecution that they did to him when he conquered Makkah, all the unbelievers who are now under him, they thought that he's going to take revenge. And he didn't take revenge. He says, La tathriba alaykum al-yawm. He says, I'm going to say the same thing that Yusuf alayhi salam says to his brother. La tathriba alaykum al-yawm. No revenge will be taken on you today. Then he says to one of his messengers, اذهبوا بقميصي هذا فألقوه على وجه أبي يأتي بصيرا وأتوني بأهلكم أجمعين. Then he says, take this sword of mine and throw it on my father's face. His eyesight is going to be returned. This sword, a blessed sword, it is mentioned that the sword was a sword of Jannah, a sword of paradise. When Ibrahim alayhi salam was thrown into the fire, This short, Allah sent Jibreel alayhi salam with a short to put on Ibrahim alayhi salam whilst he was in that fire. And this short, because it came from Jibreel alayhi salam, this short was kept by all the prophets coming. And Yaqub alayhi salam, he knew of the envy of the brothers towards Yusuf alayhi salam. So he had the short rolled up and placed around like a chain, like for Yusuf alayhi salam. And when Yusuf alayhi salam was in the well, Jibreel alayhi salam came and told him, no, they have a short, because remember they took off his short. So he got that short on, the same short of paradise, and he kept that with him. Now he sent that short because he knew that this is a blessed short. فَلَمَّا فَصَلَتِ الْعِيرُ قَالَ أَبُوهُمْ إِنِّي لَأَجِدُ رِيحُ يُوسُفَ لَوْلَا أَن تُفَنِّدُونَ. Soon as this delegation left with the short, they are now departed Egypt. Yaqub alayhi salam says, I'm smelling the scent of Yusuf alayhi salam. They didn't reach in Canaan as yet. Allah says, فَلَمَّا فَصَلَتِ الْعِيرُ. Soon as that caravan left, soon as it departed, Allah sent a wind. And that wind went straight to Yaqub alayhi salam. And Yaqub alayhi salam started to smell the scent of Yusuf alayhi salam. So he said to his two sons that was with him, he says, I'm smelling the scent of Yusuf. He says, Lola and Tufanido, you're going old. You're losing your senses. You're going too old. And as the Bashir came, the person with the short came, he threw the short on the face of Yusuf on Yaqub alayhi salam, and the eyesight was returned. And then Yaqub alayhi salam says, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. Didn't I tell you I know more than you? And then they all prepared now. They all prepared to go to Egypt, to be reunited, because the command that Yusuf alayhi salam gave was, I want my whole family with me. So I want all of them to migrate. And this is how they left Palestine and went to Egypt. Because Yusuf alayhi salam is there and he wanted his whole family over. So they left, they prepared all the thing, and they went. As they reached close to Egypt, before entering Egypt, Yusuf alayhi salam had ensured that people, some of his workers, told him when they are close to Egypt. As they got close to Egypt, Yusuf alayhi salam and all the ministers and even the king came out to welcome Yaqub alayhi salam before he entered in. Udkhulu Misra, and he says to him, enter into Egypt with peace. They came, this is a reunion between a father and a son. After so many years, he didn't see his father. So many years, the father just in tears for his son, so much so that he lost his eyesight, and now they're reunited back with each other. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he didn't just sit back and say, when he come, let him come and meet me. No, he went out, saw his father, and he embraced his father, he welcomed his father and tell him, come. Then as they entered, Rafa Abawayhi al-Arsh. He took Abawayhi, not his father, but Abawayhi, he took his parents and placed them on the same seat as him. The brothers, leave them right there. But his parents, took his parents, be how big you are, your parents should always be there with you. He brought his parents and he put them there to sit. We know his mother passed away. But Allah says, Abawayhi, his parents, that is, his stepmother was there. But he treated her as a real mother. Did not say, you're not blood, you stay one side, I'm just going to take my father. No, Allah says, he took both of them. Rafa'a Abawayhi. He raised both of his parents on the arsh. فَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا, and they all prostrated him. When we say prostrate, don't mean the type of sajda that you do for salat. Many times you get carried away and think that is the sajda they were doing. The bow forward is also considered to be sajda. So even when Allah told the angels to prostrate, according to the scholar, wasn't to put your head down on the earth, was to bow in front of Adam alayhi salam. So they bowed in front of him, and even the parents, whilst they were sitting, they bowed as a form of respect, as a form of honor, not as a form of ibadat. And it was allowed in their religion. We know now it is not allowed in our deen, but it was allowed there. And then Yusuf alayhi salam, he says to his father, my father, this is the interpretation of the dream. إِنِّي رَأَيْتُ أَحَدَ عَشْرَ كَوْكَبًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ رَأَيْتُهُمْ لِي سَاجِدِينَ. I saw 11 stars, the sun and the moon prostrating to me. Now, after 40 years, now the dream came true. Now the dream came true. Sometimes we make dua, we want it to happen right away. It wouldn't happen right away. So we make dua, we have to wait. It is going to come true. We have to wait. We have to have sabr. And there are going to be many, many obstacles before we get what we want. Many obstacles. We saw it from Yusuf alayhi salam. Many obstacles, thrown in the well, being in prison, being mistreated by his brothers. But he kept on going. Yusuf alayhi salam, he says, I thank Allah for granting me the ability to interpret dreams, as well as Allah protected me from having enmity between my brothers. Because Shaitan was the one that sowed that seed of enmity. So at that point, he did not blame his brothers. Who he blamed? He blamed Shaitan. Because if Shaitan did not whisper to them, they wouldn't have done that. So he blamed Shaitan. And he only thanked Allah. Thanked Allah for all that Allah has done to him. He did not say, oh Allah, you caused me to go in that well, you caused me to be in that prison. No. Just look at the goodness he got, and he kept on thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah removes you from hardship, you look at the goodness Allah has given to you and you thank Him. Another thing that we learn from this story of Yusuf alayhi salam is that whilst you're going through your life, those who are going to hurt you the most are those who are closest to you. Those who are closest to you, your family. Your family are going to be the one to hurt you more than anybody else. And there's witness to that. People, there's so much of quarrels with family amongst family members. This brother not talking to that one. We have children want to beat up parents, parents fighting with children. This one did this to that one. You're going to have the hardest time with your family. But even though you were going to have the hardest time, that is a test for you. Because your family members, your brothers, your sisters, it is Allah who give you them. Allah placed them in your life. You didn't have a choice who is going to be your brother or who is going to be your sister. You had no choice in that. You had a choice who's going to be your wife. Had no choice who's going to be your brother or your sister. Allah wanted them to be a brother, Allah wanted them to be a sister. And whatever happened, what Yusuf alayhi salam did, he did not use his physical eye, he used what we call ayn al-haq. He looked using the eyes of the truth. And what we say, the eyes of the truth. If he used his own eyes, he would have said, no, they do me bad. I had to get back at them. Now there's some siblings will say, I can't forgive him or I can't forgive her. What they said about me or what they do, I can't forgive them. They will die without my forgiveness. That is what we say, because what? We're using our physical eyes. We're looking to it with our physical eye. But Yusuf alayhi salam, he did, he used the eyes of the haqq, the eyes of the truth. That is, says, no, they did this, yes, but they only did that because Allah decreed it. Allah wanted so. If they didn't do that to him, how he becoming the king? How he becoming the minister of finance? So whatever you have reached, whatever success you have reached is because people has helped you to reach there. Even those who have done bad to you has helped you to reach there. Because if they didn't do that to you, you won't reach there. This is known as Ayn al-Haq. So don't worry with shaitan telling you to use your physical eyes. Use the eyes of the Haq, the eyes of the truth. Because everything has been decreed by Allah. And when we use this type of eye, we're definitely going to forgive those around us. We're going to forgive our brothers and our sisters. We should not be people who have brothers and sisters and not talking to each other. This is a story with the main part of the story is teaching us that we need to live good with our brothers and our sisters. We need to live good with family members. Yet how hard it is, we have to live good with them. The dua that Yusuf alayhi salam, he made, he says, Rabbi ataytani min al-mulki wa 'allamtani min ta'wil al-ahadith fatir as-samawati wal-ard anta wali fi ad-dunya wal-akhirah tawaffani musliman wa alhiqni bis-salihin. That was the ending dua that Yusuf alayhi salam made, which I'm going to make mention and then we're going to close inshallah. He says, Rabbi ataytani min al-mulk. Oh Allah, you have granted me kingdom. You have made me a king, because after that king passed away, he became the king. And he was loved by all. Once the Prophet ﷺ was asked, what would you like to be? Would you like to be a Nabiyyun Abdun or a Nabiyyun Malikun? Would you like to be a prophet who's a slave of Allah, or would you like to be a prophet who's a king? And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, when they was asked this by Jibreel alayhi salam, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, I would prefer to be a Nabiyyun Abdun. I would prefer to be a prophet who is a slave of Allah. I don't want to be no king. But Allah granted kingship to Yusuf alayhi salam. We saw him asking for leadership. We know there's the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which says, those who ask for leadership, don't give it to them. But he did that, which tells us it is allowed to ask for leadership. That is, if you know that there's no one else better than you. If you know that there's no one else, but he knew that all those ministers, they would have just ruined all those crops. They would have just destroyed it by being too extravagant in it. So he knew that there was nobody better than him. So he put himself up. And the same thing, for example, if you're maybe in a masjid and there's no one else, there's one alim, then he shouldn't say, no, I don't want position. I don't want to be no imam. The Prophet say I can't ask for it. No. If you're the only one who's considered to be an alim, you should put yourself forward. But if you have 3-4 alims in a jamaat, then you say, you know what, whatever the people want to choose, because we have more than one they could choose from. So that's a different situation. So the dua, Rabbi ataytani min al-mulki. My Lord, you have granted me mulk, you have granted me kingship. Wa 'allamtani min ta'wil al-ahadith, and you have taught me the interpretation of dreams. This was another gift given to him by Allah. Anta wali fi dunya wal akhirah. Oh Allah, you are my wali. You are my protector in this world as in the next. And we saw Allah protecting him throughout his life. Whilst times look as if there's no way out, Allah still protected him and Allah allowed him to pass his test. Tawaffani Musliman. Oh Allah, allow me to die as a Muslim. Tawaffani Musliman. This is a very important word to me. Very, very important. Because we can live our whole life, but if we don't die as a Muslim, we are nothing. We need to die as a Muslim. And this is a dua we should always ask. Oh Allah, allow me to die as a Muslim. Tawaffani Musliman. Walhiqni bis-salihin. And oh Allah, allow me to be in the company of the righteous. Allow me to meet those who are righteous. So when you resurrect me on the day of judgment, allow me to be amongst the people who are righteous. So this was the dua of Yusuf alayhi salam. So with this we saw many lessons. And I said we could even go in more in depth, but we wanted to at least complete it tonight. We saw a lot of lessons. The only way these lessons could benefit us is if we practice them. If we see whatever is lacking in our lives and we try to correct them. As I said, one of the main gist of the whole story is relationship between our family. So if we know that any one of us, we have any friction amongst the family, we should be the first to try to fix that. If we fix that after hearing 3 lectures of Yusuf and we're able to try our best to rectify that amongst our family, then we have done justice to those 3 hours that we sit down here and listen. But if we can't do that, if when we go home we still have a rift amongst family, and we can't see eye to eye and we can't forgive one another, then you just had a bedtime story. So may Allah help us all and grant us tawfiq, the ability to do actions which are pleasing to Him, and may Allah enter all of us into His Jannatul Firdaus. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.